Welcome back to another episode of Not Even D2, the podcast covering Division III sports through interviews with those involved in Division III. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on any other platform, make sure to follow the show. Also follow our socials at Not Even D2 if you're looking for more Division III content or some sneak peeks into future episodes. But on today's episode, we got Coach Todd McGuinness, who's currently the head coach of Case Western Reserve. And he's definitely built Case Western Reserve into a nationally known program, one of the best programs in all of Division III. Has a bunch of unique concepts and philosophies that we talk about with him. But this episode was cool for us because he was also the head coach at Hartwick a few years ago. And they play in the Empire 8, the conference you and I both play in. So it's pretty cool just to see what that conference was like and hear some of the stories he had coaching in that conference. But like I said, great coach. He led Hartwick to the first Empire 8 championship and program history, led them to 4 straight NCAA tournament appearances, and now at Case, 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances. So definitely just changes cultures, builds teams up, and I have a lot of thoughts regarding Coach McGuinness and this episode, but I'll let you take it away and what you thought about this episode.
Yeah, definitely a great episode. To your point about the Empire 8 thing, about him coaching at Hartwick, which is in the Empire 8, it's great to hear because, kind of coming from similar backgrounds, right? So we're currently student athletes in the Empire 8 conference, which is growing more this year, which is already a great conference, I feel, an underrated one at that. But Coach McGuinness coached at Hartwick and is now coaching one of the best teams in the country in Case Western at a great university too. So it's showing us who are student athletes in the Empire 8 that if you work hard, make the right connections, and do your job at the end of the day, you could get in the right situations. But back to the episode, it was a great episode, man. It was great conversations. And I think what this episode kind of taught me is that whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whatever field you're in, you have to be unapologetically yourself. And what I mean by that is two different things, right? So the first thing would be Coach McGuinness has this thing about transfers that it might not be the most popular idea out right now to recruit a bunch of transfers that, never played for your program, because a lot of coaches might want continuity and guys that they can build from 18 years old to when they graduate at 22. But Coach McGuinness is like, nah, I want to get the one of the smartest guys, the best playing guys. I want to get them in my gym, in my program, so we can win together and we can win games. And if we can get the right guys that'll sacrifice for the team, then we're going to be good. And the proof is in the pudding because they've had 3 straight seasons of 20+ wins, and they made the NCAA tournament the last 3 years, right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is Coach McGuinness, KJ, I think you might have brought this conversation up with him just about how, as coaches, sometimes coaches will stick to one idea or philosophy, right? So he was talking about how right now he's been watching a lot of the NBA playoffs, where he was watching a lot of the NBA playoffs or NBA teams to see what offenses they run so he could be innovative and go where the game is going, right? And he was talking about how he, wasn't going to print. He didn't want to run the Princeton offense, or he was talking about how he never does shell drill in his practices. You know what I'm saying? So he's unapologetically himself as a coach. And I love that. And I think you can add that to many areas, not only basketball.
Great points. Like, really, everything you just said was definitely needed to say. I want to talk about the transfer portal. You mentioned how Coach McGuinness goes hard in the transfer portal, and I respect that about a coach because, it's not like you said. The most coaches would be like, I can't build my program out that way. But Coach McGuinness looked at the transfer portal when it first started to become popular and was like, I can use this to my advantage. And like you said, it's just working for him. But what I wanted to talk about is how the transfer portal gets a negative rep as it's ruining college basketball or it's ruining top programs. But I want people to start looking at the transfer portal in a different light. When high school students are asked to pick a college for the next 4 years, that's a lot of pressure for a kid that his brain is not, or a girl is not, their brain isn't developed the way that it should be. So when you get to a school, it might not be the right fit. So we shouldn't ask these players or students to just be held down to a certain school if it's not working for them. Like the transfer portal it's a great thing for student athletes to be able to venture out and try something new. Like if a person has a job that they don't like, it's perfectly okay for them to just be like, this is not working for me. I want to move on to something else. We shouldn't be looking at these players like they're ruining college basketball because they're seeking other opportunities that could eventually help their basketball career or even just life itself. So coaches sometimes are like, the transfer portal is not for me, but I respect Coach McGuinness. Like, I'm going to use this to my advantage. And he could just complain about it, like, oh, it's ruining the UAA or I can't build my program, the continuity. But him going in the transfer portal, taking 6 transfers this past year, it says a lot about him as a coach. And I respect that those guys at Case, they're also taking that challenge like, yeah, bring on these transfers. I'm still going to compete against them and try to earn my spot. But
Great points.
Yeah, I have one more thing to talk about. You talked about Coach McGuinness being unapologetic himself. And when you have a coach that is going to be brutally honest with you, not even just a coach, just a person in your life that is just always honest with you and going to tell you the truth, it does something to you as a basketball player and as a person itself, like realizing that you're not the best, or like these D1 guys coming to D3, they might think, oh, my spot is just solidified. But Coach McGuinness is going to be honest with them, like, no, your spot is, you got to work just as hard as these freshmen, just as hard as everybody else on Case if you want a spot. So I respect everything about Coach McGuinness.
For sure. And also another thing too, like this idea that you're talking about, it's like basically accountability, right? It's like when any coach, that great coach that we have in Division III, Division I, Division II, NBA, whatever, like they hold their players accountable at the end of the day. The standard of excellence, shout out Coach Kimbrough,
man.
SOE, get it done. You know what I'm saying? So that is like a defining trait, I feel like, for a lot of good coaches, like being able to hold your players accountable, but also asking them as players to hold themselves accountable within the team. And you definitely see that at Case and other great programs around the country.
Yeah, but we can keep going on and on about what we like about Coach McGuinness. We talk about a lot with him regarding the transfer portal, why he goes so hard in the transfer portal, what drove the success at Hartwick, and now what has changed now he's at Case Western Reserve, and a ton more. So definitely a great episode, a ton of interesting topics. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and let's hear from Coach McGuinness. All right, we're here with Coach McGuinness. How you feeling today, Coach?
Good. Beautiful day in Cleveland after watching the Cavs just win Game 7 there.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that. You're a big Cavs fan. We talked earlier, and they're going up against number 1 seed Celtics, who've been dominating the NBA this whole season. So what are your predictions for that series, and do you think Cleveland has a realistic chance to compete?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. They didn't shoot the ball, though. The Cavs didn't shoot the ball well this last series. And I think, especially playing the Celtics, you have to be able to make threes or you're in trouble. And so hopefully they can see some go through. Hopefully Jared Allen gets back here. He's banged up, but I think there's optimism that he'll play this on Tuesday. And, anytime you have Donovan Mitchell, I think you're all right to think you have a chance when he's out there.
So you talked about how, you're in Cleveland right now, and, most D3 schools aren't really in like a big city like Cleveland. So what is it like over the summer just for you to be in the area still and like be in like a great city like that?
Yeah, it's great. Like today, the Guardians played at home right after the Cavs, and there's people everywhere. I live in a little neighborhood right outside downtown, and they're very vibrant. People with enjoying themselves at 75 degrees, and getting ready for the summer here, and getting ready for the time that hopefully the Cavs keep winning and enjoy some more wins here.
I'm not a fan of the Guardians or the Cavaliers, so that's a good start for us.
Yeah, I'm a Pirate fan. I'm from Pittsburgh originally, so
okay.
I'm a Pirate fan. But since they're here, I have to root for them. It's like the Browns too. I don't mess with the Browns, but they're here, so you kind of hope they win, so people are happy.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. So I want to start at your college career. You went to Bethany College, which is in West Virginia, and you had a great career. You're still top 10 in assists and steals throughout your career. And 2 years during your junior and senior year, you were a captain. So how do you think that your collegiate career and experiences impacted you in life, basketball, and influenced your career today?
Yeah, I think the basketball part of it was we got, it's interesting. If you look at the programs I've taken over, they haven't been great when I've got to places. When I got to college, I think our first year we won 3 games. And then our second year we got a little bit better. And, our second year we were in a Princeton offense. And we didn't have the team for the Princeton offense. So I think that's one thing that I learned is that I will never coach the Princeton offense. I hated playing in it. I really didn't like it. Our team wasn't great with it. And it's interesting because when we play teams that run it, we struggle guarding, and I kind of know it. But that's probably when we lose the teams, it's because they run the stupid Princeton, and we don't guard it well. But then our junior year, we made a big leap and won our conference. And then our senior year went to the NCAA tournament for the first time since, I think, 1980. So, kind of like my coaching career where it's, starting something that hasn't been great. And in a couple of years, it's turned out to be a pretty good product. I got my start because I was student teaching. I didn't know both my parents are educators, and I thought I wanted to be maybe a teacher and a student teaching during my senior year. And I broke my hand to pick up, and and it was just miserable. And I was like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to be a teacher. And and my coach was like, hey, I think you'd be pretty good at coaching. And it's a path that he helped me go down, and able to find something. It's interesting because the guy I played with at Bethany is Nevada Smith, who's now at Marquette running their offense. And so we were actually roommates, and he close friend of mine, still in touch with him. But so 2 guys out of that class that had really successful college careers are both coaching. And so it was great. You learned a lot. I don't think I could have gone to Bethany nowadays. It's in the middle of nowhere with cell phones and everything like that. I think it would have been a little bit of an adjustment to go there, but it was a great experience, made great friends. And we hosted the Sweet 16 2 years ago here, and 5 of my college roommates came to the game from all over the place. And it was really cool to see them and be in touch with them. But yeah, just learning. And we played fast the last couple of years, and I think that's how my teams play now. We try to emulate a little bit of what we were doing back then to what our team does now.
So, Coach, we interview a lot of different Division III coaches that might have played Division III basketball, and I ask a lot of them, or this question rather comes up in my mind when I talk to them: did their own D3 experience influence them and their just willingness to stay in the division and their willingness to contribute to Division III basketball? So I'm wondering if that's the same thing for you.
Yeah, it's like I was saying, I had some opportunities maybe to go a different route, look at different positions. And, it just always seems like it's the right move to stay in Division III. Academically, I like working with high achievers that I know school's number 1 for, and then, the overall, that's what I'm comfortable with, being a Division III player. A lot of my good friends are in Division III, and, it's just been a pretty good home for me. And, I've been a head coach now 14 years, 15 years if you count COVID. So it's been, been a fun journey, and, meeting different people, being in different parts of the country, coaching against different different talent levels. So it's been great.
Yeah.
Talking a little bit more about, you said that you've been an assistant coach. Head coach for how long now?
Yeah, 14 seasons, 15 years we didn't play during COVID. So
yeah. So basically 15 years. But it wasn't always, like that when you first started out. And I want to talk a little bit about your upcoming in Division III basketball, and specifically your time at Hartwick. And we noticed when we were doing research for this episode that you were an assistant coach to 2 different coaches your first 2 years at Hartwick. So I wanted to ask just about how that kind of went for you, and how did you navigate that, that time?
Yeah, it was interesting. I got the job and I worked for Tim McGraw, and he was the all-time leading scorer at that point, and still a close friend of mine. His son just got drafted by Seattle Mariners, so I stayed in touch with Tug a lot, and and then he decided to get out of coaching and wanted to stay in the area, and then we hired a Division I guy, Paul Colpo, who I didn't know, and I credit a lot for Paul for my career is that, because just his recruiting, the different stuff that I was a part of. We were bad, we got. I think I still tell stories. I saw him at the Final Four, and he had a pool party, and I was over at his house, like his Airbnb, hanging out, and I was telling stories of the people who were there about him being a maniac and some of the crazy things he was doing. But he really helped my career with the recruiting aspect and looking at stuff a little bit differently. And it wasn't, those weren't pretty years. I think we were the second year, we were 2-23, or, so those were some crazy years. He would send me on the road at halftime recruiting. He'd just we're not going to win, and just leave. And, at one point in the timeout, he swung the clipboard and cut me, and I had to go get stitches after the game. But he's, there's stories that I could tell that, people wouldn't even think were real. And, but it really helped. He really influenced me, with the recruiting. And then there's a guy there, the gym's named after Nick Lambros, who is, in the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame. And, and so I got to know Nick really well, which helped me when I went back there. And Nick's been, very influential in my career as well.
Yeah. So you talked about how you started at Hartwick, and then, you moved to Vassar College, you spent some time at Case Western Reserve, and then you returned back to Hartwick to be the head coach. So I'm curious what that process was like, coaching one season at Hartwick, spending time at other schools, and then coming back. What brought you back to Hartwick, and did it feel normal being back at the old coaching stint you had? Talk to me about that time period in your life.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was involved with, an off job at Bucknell at that point, and Hartwick, and, I was interviewed in different places, but it just felt, it was easy. You know what I mean? It was an easy transition. I had worked there, even though I worked there, and then I came back 4 years later. It still was an easy, pretty easy transition. I knew what the school was. I knew, what the town was. I knew where I wanted to live. I think it's pretty easy when you go back. It's okay, I know what I'm getting into here. And, and a lot of change since then, new president, and, they renovated the gym and, did some different stuff there. And, but it was, it actually helps you. I did the same at Case. I worked at Case as assistant for 3 years, and, was able to come back. And, when I got back to Hartwick, they just had a first winning season, or maybe a winning season since 1995. I forget what it was, but it wasn't great. I got there and I'm oh my gosh, I might be one of the better players on the floor right now if I was still playing, and that's, my age, that wouldn't have been good. That wouldn't have been, that good, but it was, it was great. It was an easy transition. It was, I remember it was quick. I got there in August, I think, and, the students are coming in, so I didn't have a chance to recruit, and, you're kind of thrown into whatever you have, and, you don't know the guys, and you're trying to figure out how to get to know them. And, at that point I was 28, I think, or 20. Yes. I was young, I was, as a head coach, pretty young, getting a job, and, but it was great. Coach Lambros was there. That really helped me. He sat on our bench, and, I think they were leaning towards hiding someone else when in the process, and Nick stuck his neck out a little bit for me and was able to, help me get the job there.
So, I noticed that you were hired in 2009 to be the head coach of Hartwick. And, it made me just think, so you were an assistant coach for 7 years at two different programs. And when we talk to a lot of these, Division III coaches, again, they talk about they want to be innovative, right? So they're grabbing things from different coaches and trying to maybe change it for their own program, right? And it makes me just think, how much of this time as assistant coach, learning under different coaches and being at two different programs, how much of this influenced you when you first took over the job at Hartwick?
Yeah, the interesting thing I tell people all the time is I learned what I didn't want to do. You know what I mean? And what, I think that was the most important thing to me. And, our offense has changed since, the 14 years I've been doing this. We add stuff. The basketball's changed, you know what I mean? The way the game's changed. And, I think I've been able to adapt. The one interesting thing is, if you look at the teams I've coached, especially as a head coach, we're not really a good defensive team. We win a lot, but it's usually an offensive, I really didn't work for anyone that was a defensive guy. So I worked for guys that I didn't have anyone that was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this with me, or I'm going to take this with me. And, that's one thing that, I really haven't, we did shell drill one time this year. You know what I mean? So we don't really, that's not a big important part of my coaching philosophy. And it's I think at times you wish, you maybe work for someone that was a better defensive coach or defensive mind that could have helped me, formulate some stuff. But, I think the main thing was I figured out what I didn't want to do and how I didn't want my teams to play, and, what I wasn't going to, how I was going to treat the guys. And I think that's what I learned the most is, probably what I didn't want to do coaching.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about your time at Hartwick and where you are now at Case Western, but I want to talk about something you just mentioned within defense. You said you only had shell drill and one practice this year, and a lot of coaches kind of follow a certain philosophy or take different philosophies from different coaches. So I'm curious what your own philosophy actually is and how practices are if you're not focusing too much on the defensive end.
When we go with defensive stuff, our defensive stuff's more scout based. So we're a lot of scout based defense. So we, there's certain things we'll do, and, it's all based on who we're playing, really. Because the game's played so differently now that, you want to do shell drill and be in the gaps or be denying, but then you play a guy that can't shoot. We won't guard that guy. We'll stand in the paint. People laugh, but we literally will stand in the paint on a guy. We played Hope in the second round of the tournament, and we stood in the paint on one guy, and that's kind of probably why we beat him, and we'll do that a lot. But, with our philosophy is I want it to be fun. You know what I mean? I think that really changed during COVID. I wanted our guys to have the best experience they could. They lost a year, and it was well, let's make this as fun as we can. So our practices are hour 15, hour and 20. We're in and out of there. A lot of that has to do with our classes too. But our guys, we get in, we play a lot, especially early. We'll play a lot. We shoot a lot. If we're going to shoot 30 threes or 35 threes a game, you better shoot them in practice. That's one thing we emphasize. And we do a lot of 15-second shot clock, where we'll play with a 15-second shot clock in practice to, get up and down and get used to playing fast, because you can't play fast unless you practice it. Everyone wants to say, oh, we play fast and do this and that. Our goal is to play fast, but our goal is also to win. So people can say, okay, we want to be this or that or that. We want to play as fast as we can. Okay, cool. We want to do that too, but we want to win. So we're going to do what it takes to win. And, I think we're the number one efficient offensive team in the country this year. So, on synergy, we're number one. And then defensively, we weren't great. And, but we still, you can't, I say you can't score 90, average 89 points and give up 60. It's just impossible. And people say, oh, you need to get better in defense. All right, cool. But if we're going to get 90, whoever we're playing better be able to get 90 too. Because if we're playing in the 90s, that's why I say to beat us, you got to be able to score. You got to be able to make a bunch of threes. And, we try to eliminate, threes and, make you take mid-range twos. That's the goal. And, on offense, we want to make threes and make layups. And, I think that's everyone's goal right now, the way the game's played. But, we just want to, get up and down. And, we're very simple. This year probably is the simplest team I've ever, on offense we ever coached. And, it turned out to be pretty good. And, with the run we went on.
Yeah. I think what you just said is very interesting. My Alfred coach, Eric Kemphy, he's pretty dialed into the defensive end. We practice that a lot. We want to be good on the defensive side. And you said you're an offensive coach, but it's funny that you guys are trying to force the same things as a defense. So that's pretty interesting about coaching, two different philosophies, but principles are the same. So I like that. But,
yeah, it's, and we recruit guys, and, when I tell them, I'm listen, you got to be skilled. We really don't recruit guys that can't shoot. I don't think the guy that can play defense and can't shoot isn't what I'm looking for as a coach. You know what I mean? And we need the guy, we want the guy. I'd rather have a guy that can space the floor and, we can do stuff on defense to hide that guy a little bit, but if that guy can go out there and get you 20 and not give up 20, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah. So back to your coaching career at Hartwick, you spent 7 seasons there from 2009 to 2016, and your third all-time in Hartwick program history in wins with sitting at 114. You made 4 NCAA tournament appearances in your time and won 3 Empire 8 championships, including the first ever at Hartwick. So I'm just curious, what do you think was the lead factor or factors that allowed Hartwick to be so good during your time there?
The first guy was, getting Jared Southerly. He was an incredible player, and he's actually a Utica guy. He's from West Canada Valley up in Utica. And so, we were able to, his recruitment was so interesting. It was just us, and it was Hartwick and RPI. And, he was thinking about being an engineer. And I just told him I came from Case, and I said, I don't think you should be an engineer, just the way you think, you kind of get to know the guys who want to be engineers, what they think and everything. And, we were able to get them to come and he had games in like high school where he had like 50 points. He was like an undersized 5-man, and he was like 6'5", maybe 6'6". And I think he scored 2,300 points and had over 1,000 rebounds. So just didn't miss. Like we won every game that needed to happen. He scored, and, we got a guy like that. And I think his first year we went down, and that's when Stevens, it was in the Empire 8, and Ithaca was in Empire 8 still. And we went down to Stevens and beat them, and St. John Fisher upset Ithaca. And so we got to host a championship on a Sunday. And our place, like it was getting busy, like more people come in. But then like that game was like the turning point, I think, of the program a little bit. When I was there, it was absolutely insane. It was sold out. Like people were lined up outside, people on the baseline. And you guys have been in the Hartwick gym, you kind of know there's probably not many people in there now when they're playing. But when we were there, it was filled every night, and we beat them, and then we went and went to the NCAA tournament. And next year, I think we went 23-2 in the regular season and hosted the NCAA tournament. And so then it just got on a little bit of a run that our guys believed we were supposed to win, and that goes a long way.
Yeah. And your last year at Hartwick, you guys finished 19-9, and you won an Empire 8 championship that year. During that year, you surpassed 100 wins in your career. So just a lot of positives throughout that year. And I'm curious, you took a different head coaching job at Case Western after that year. So what went into the thought process of leaving Hartwick and moving to Case Western Reserve after such a successful year?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of with looking to move here is one, I wanted to live in the city. I think I was done with living in a small college town. I think that wears on you. 2, I'm from Pittsburgh, so 2 hours from my parents. My parents are getting a little bit older, so be a little bit closer to them. My brother is the athletic director at Washington and Jefferson College, so he has 3 little kids. So being close to them, being able to see them, and and then you look at Case Western, it's top 30 private research university. In the UAA, it's you want to be in the UAA. If you look at, there's 8 of them, 8 jobs, and coaches don't leave these jobs. They're there forever, and you get to live in a city, you get to work with great guys. And in Hartwick, I was the facility director, and I was doing all this other craziness. And here, I'm just we're faculty, so we teach a couple PE classes, but it's really you're in a major city, so you can walk down the street, no one really knows who you are. In Oneonta, you walk down the street, they know who you are, and I like being being out of that. But people are starting to realize who we are a little bit at Case. We've been pretty successful, been on TV. So sometimes you go around and people like, oh, okay, that guy coaches at Case, or, might know him, but half the people don't even know Case has a basketball team. So, that's, it's good, good thing and bad thing, but it's, just being able to be in a city, being able to go to, like I was at the Cavs game Tuesday night, and, being able to probably go Saturday. They're going to play at home against the Celtics Saturday, so I'll probably be there. So, certain stuff like that, going to Browns games, going to Guardians games that, you can't, concerts, all that stuff that major city living that you don't get when you're in Oneonta, New York.
I was going to say that probably provides like a recruiting advantage too, just for like players coming in, like, oh, damn, like they go to school in a city, like, they have Cleveland has a nice, like it's a nice area. It's a big city. So it's like for an 18-year-old kid coming in, we're going to talk about this. I know you only take transfers, but just for a college student to come in and see that type of environment, I'm sure that's pretty attractive for them.
Yeah, it's great. They can, a lot of kids when they come, they'll go to Cavs games, when they're on their visit, like, oh, okay, they'll plan a visit around the Cavs playing at home, or, a Browns game, or Browns are playing someone, and, they're from California, and it's easier getting a Browns 49ers game in Cleveland is, and, in San Francisco or whatever. So a lot of guys, yeah, it's great that, they have the ability, and you're in a major city. So there's always something going on. There's, nightlife, being able to go to games is, there's a lot of stuff going on. Our campus is beautiful, and Case is located like 2 miles from downtown, and we're like the cultural hub of Cleveland with the stuff on campus. So there's always something to do, but school's hard here. So our guys are doing a lot of studying as well.
So talking about your first couple years at, Case Western, you guys had solid seasons, beating really good teams, but you didn't make the tournament. And I noticed since the COVID-19 pandemic, you guys have made the tournament 3 straight times, So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think changed for you guys after the COVID-19 pandemic? I know you kind of talked about it earlier, saying you wanted your students to have fun, but what are some other things?
Yeah, I think the main thing out of that was, if you look at Case Western and Case Western history of basketball, we had never been over 500 in UAA. I think the best record ever was 6-8, and we had a good, like right before COVID, we turned it a little bit. I thought we had a good class coming in, freshmen, and good returners, and we had the rookie of the year coming back, and I thought we were going to be like, okay, we're going to make a little bit of jump, maybe 15, 16 wins, and and then COVID hits, and I'll never forget it. I was actually on my boat in the middle of Lake Erie, and NCAA passed because we weren't allowed to go to work or weren't allowed to be around, all that craziness, and they passed a rule about grad transfers, and the COVID year. And the first call I made was Rob Cornicker, who was the head coach of St. John Fisher, and his son played at Middlebury, Griffin Cornicker. And, he was able to, I said, hey, like, we're going to be able to, get a master's of finance. And, and we were able to get him. And then there was a Division I guy, Mitch Pendergrass, who ended up being the UAA player of the year. And we were able to get Mitch. And then we got one of my former, my first assistant at Hartwick ever is the head coach at Franklin Marshall, Nick Niche. And he called me. He's like, hey, we have a big guy that wants to play an extra year. Will you want him? And so we went from, all right, we're going to have a pretty good team coming back, that we picked up 3 starters within a month of each other that have all played, college basketball. They're all grown men, and changed it real quick, and we lost our first game. I remember we lost to Wisconsin, one of the Wisconsin teams. And everyone was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I think we won like 14 in a row or 12 in a row or something. And, I remember Dave McHugh from D3 Hoops like texted me and was like, why didn't you tell your team was good? I was like, well, I didn't know. I said, I knew we were going to be pretty, I as a coach, you kind of know. And, I knew we were going to be pretty good, but I didn't really tell anyone. And, then we just, went on a little run in the NCAA tournament. And we had never made the NCAA tournament. We'd never, we ended up 9-4, I think, in UA. Brandis had to cancel a game because of COVID. And, we went, went to the Sweet 16, upset the number 1 team in the country on their floor. And, probably could have kept going, but we lost to Mary Hardin Baylor. I've watched the film one time, and we were up. We missed 3 front-end one-on-ones in the last minute, and they threw it deep. Our point guard stole it, thought the game ended, dropped the ball right to their guy. We fouled him, made both foul shots. We lost in overtime. So, it was about as crazy as the game you can ever have. And, you're thinking, I turned around, I thought we won. I turned around to like celebrate. And next thing you know, I hear a whistle. I'm like, what just happened? And, and so it was great though. We had, our place was packed. No one ever thought it would be possible to do that. And, now it's kind of the norm.
Yeah. Since we're talking about postseason play, this is a great segue. I was looking through, your bio, what your teams have done, and I noticed that you've made the playoffs 7 times in your career, the NCAA playoffs, and 4 of those seasons, the teams have won 20-plus games throughout that regular season. And, great regular seasons don't always translate to far postseason runs. And I noticed you have 4 first-round exits at Hartwick, 1 at Case Western Reserve. So what have you learned that how you have to coach in the postseason versus regular season play?
Yeah, Hartwick was always interesting because we did get it at home one time, and we had a collapse against one of the SUNY. We played SUNY Farmingdale, and they had the guy that AJ, I can't remember his last name. He ended up going to the NBA, playing in the NBA. He was like a 7'1" guy. We couldn't do anything with him, and we ended up losing same kind of thing, missed foul shots down the stretch. And I think what you realize is everything matters in these games. One possession might change the game, and and you got to be at home. That's kind of the thing too. If you can get it at home, then you're in a lot better shape. Like this year, the 4 teams that went to the Final Four all were at home. And we were the 2nd overall number 1 seed, but with travel, and they didn't want to spend, the 500-mile limit, they sent us on the road. So, I think it's a lot being at home. You learn that pretty quick, that it's a lot easier to win at home in the NCAA tournament than it is on the road. We got 2 years ago, we lost to Wisconsin Whitewater. They went to the Final Four. They had a guy we couldn't guard. Now he's just transferred Division I. I think he's going to St. Thomas, Minnesota. So, you're playing that guy as a freshman. You're like, well, look at this dude. So I think a lot of it has to do is, value every possession. And it's hard because you're playing Friday night and you turn around and you got to play Saturday. So the most important games of the year, you're playing back to back, and we don't play in the UAA. We play Friday, Sunday. So, I think just getting used to that. This year went to Vegas and we played a couple games back to back just to try to get our bodies used to it, just so we knew what and I stressed that to the guys, like, hey, this is what we're doing here, is like getting ready for when we get to the NCAA tournament and the back-to-back games.
You're just leading me into my next questions every time. I want to talk about the UAA schedule. The UAA is definitely one of the most unique conferences in Division III. Not only is it one of the best conferences, if not the best, it's also a highly travel compensated conference. So the teams involved are from Ohio, New York, St. Louis, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Massachusetts, and Chicago. So a bunch of teams from different areas. And I just want you to talk about that schedule and how you prepare your guys to be flying around the country and still focus on school, things of that nature.
Yeah, the school part's usually pretty easy because our guys are very high achievers, so I don't really worry about the school. But we do, we'll give exams. We have, I think right now we have 4 pre-med guys and 7 engineers. So, we'll be giving exams and, on road trips, and guys, it's interesting. We'll be staying right in New York City, right by Times Square, and you'll go down and guys are studying. I think they understand hey, I need to get my work done, and it's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy, especially just to travel. You play one day in Rochester, New York, and you fly to Atlanta. You play Friday night, fly to Atlanta Saturday morning to play Emory Sunday, and Rochester runs all 2-guard Princeton stuff, and then Emory plays as fast as you can, and you have an hour practice after getting off a flight. It's really, you got to be try to get the guys ready, and then you play at noon the next day. So it's all right, it's really quick. It's you got to be. That's why we're kind of simple what we do, because if you're very on defense and you got to do, if you do some crazy stuff, then it's a little bit harder because you're worried about guys, scouting reports and stuff like that, and it's just what we've done is try to be good on offense and say, okay, we're gonna score even on the road, and we've been pretty successful the last couple of years, and this year we didn't lose a home game. We were 13-0 at home, and it's hard to win Sundays in the UAA on the road. That's the toughest one, where you're coming off a trip and, you're in New York on one night, you're busting to Boston, playing Brandon, going to get to practice for an hour, going to dinner, going to bed and waking up and playing again. It's kind of and that's if it's not snowing or if there's no delays on your flights and, all that stuff. So, you're traveling with the women's team. So you're on the same bus and you're trying to figure all that out, but it's not easy, but it's fun. You get to see all these great cities. We have great alumni in all these cities. So we always have, either people taking us out to dinner, and, we get to Thursdays. We usually have an alumni or parents dinner, and then Saturdays as well. So, we go to some awesome guys get treated really well for dinners, and, it's good, and they get to meet some of our alumni, and, we get to, enjoy some of these cities, and, and it helps guys realize, okay, because, we have a lot of guys that want to live in a city. So they're like, all right, do I want to live in Chicago? Do I want to live in Boston? Do I want to live in New York? Where do I want to move to Atlanta? So there's a lot of, of that when you're there too, as well, trying to network and help guys, place guys with jobs with some of our alumni that do really well for themselves.
Yeah. This is one more thing I'm kind of curious about before we head to break. And that's, there's pros and cons with that travel schedule when talking, intertwining with the postseason play. So on one hand, the guys are used to traveling to a far distance and they're just ready to play in the postseason. But on the other hand, they're not used to the back-to-backs, the Friday, Saturday games that most other conferences are used to. So do you think that the UAA travel schedule helps or holds back teams that make it in the postseason?
Recent years, it looks like it might hold teams back. We haven't really had that many long runs. I think the last 2 years we got to the Sweet 16 twice, and that's WashU was there this year. But I think I don't know if it impacts us. We're actually, the thing that I think that might impact us is not having a conference tournament. I think that might, because those are really back to back, and you get used to playing. Hey, this is, if you lose, you're done. And I think that is something that maybe hurts us a little bit, is not having that. I know we're actually I'm flying to Boston tomorrow morning. We have our UAA meetings in Boston. So I know that's something we're talking about, is maybe implementing that. I think that's maybe the one thing that would help us. And, but I say all the time, like every game we play, because, being in the UAA is like a UAA game, even like the Tuesday night at Hiram, that maybe people don't realize, well, if you lose that game, you're probably not getting at large. So like, I think we had 4 teams this year, 5 last year, 5 the year before. So those games are very important with, the getting the at-larges. So like when people always say, hey, like I think every game feels like an NCAA tournament for us, that we need to make sure we're there and competing every night. Or if not, like you slip up on a Tuesday in a non-conference, that game might be more important than winning on an Emory on a Friday night. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah. I appreciate that perspective, and stay with us while we take a break. Gonna come back and talk about your uniqueness in the transfer portal.
And we're back. So, Coach, you talked about how, sometimes those non-conference games can be very important, especially when it comes to the NCAA tournament. And, we know that the UAA is one of the best, conferences. Like you said, you guys play a strong out-of-conference schedule. So how do you usually plan that year to year?
Yeah, this year we're still actually looking for a game for next year. So, I think people, we try to play as local as we can, like try to stay local just with classes, try to play on weekends. So that way guys aren't missing, class during the week, especially when, because we know the UA travel is going to start in the second half. But, just trying to find like competitive games will be interesting. The NCAA is changing this new system. It's called pairwise. And, it's going to be a little bit different than like the years past. So I don't, we're actually, I guess, was watching something about it yesterday and trying to figure out if it's better to schedule teams that maybe aren't as competitive and try to get more wins. Like that's what we're trying to figure out. But, usually trying to play as local as we can. We're actually going out to Houghton this year. Houghton wanted to play us, so we're going out your way. So usually when people reach out, see if we can play. And, now that Wells closed, I know there's a lot of people scrambling for games here at the end. They're playing Wells next year. So I got to see, maybe Alfred needs a game, get out to Alfred and on the way to Houghton next year. So, we try to play. Yeah, I'll reach out to Eric, see if he wants to play. So,
I love that.
Yeah, so I have bad. My record at Alfred's horrendous, so we could never win there. That gym was horrendous. They had that old gym before they renovated it.
It's beautiful now.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it was I think the last year was when they renovated, but before it was bad. And so like you go out there, it was so dark and like it was just a terrible place to play. And and then the fans used to get on me bad there. Oh my God, that was when I was there. If you ever watched it at Hartwick, they one time they had a baby and a picture of my face on it. And yeah, because that's when they were playing crazy. They were playing like 5 in, 5 out with Dale Wellman. And they were, he got them pretty good. And, we had their number in like the conference tournament every year. And so the fans did not like me too much. But yeah, so usually we're just trying to figure out like what's not too far away, what works in our budget to, and then try to go to like we host a tournament every year and we try to go to one tournament usually, a year. But, we usually take like a long break during Thanksgiving so the guys can relax a little bit. And usually in like the Christmas break, we usually have about 2 weeks off. So, sometimes we have longer breaks than most, but, with school here and some of our stuff, we want the guys to be rested as much, but, we're always just trying to figure out what works best for, fitting games in, having enough home games, all that stuff.
So transitioning into a different topic. When we were doing research for this episode, I watched a couple of your interviews with, different D3 media. And one interview that I watched was with Bob Quillman of the QCast. Shout out to Bob, what he has going on over there. But you said to him that you'll respond to any player emailing you, and you also search on Twitter with other coaches and who they follow, which I thought was kind of funny. So I'm just wondering, like, what kind of player are you looking for when it comes to like just this recruiting, this recruiting world?
Yeah, I think the main thing, like the first thing we look at is see who can actually get in the case. You know what I mean? Like if you don't, like, we're test optional right now, which helps, but if you don't have 5 AP classes and all that, like on your transcript, or like a 32, 33 ACT, or like a 1400 or over on SATs, like probably not going to work here. So I think that's the main thing, is like figuring out, all right, who can we get in, and then who's good. You know what I mean? Guys ask me all the time, they're like, well, what do you look for? I said, good players. That's what I say, good guys. And like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, either you have you have one skill, like, or you're a great shooter. That checks a box for us right away. Can you really pass and shoot, play point guard? And, when the teams that I've coached, the 7 years we've been in the NCAA tournament, if we have a good point guard, we're probably going to be in the NCAA tournament. The way we play with the ball screens, and, him having the ball, the point guard having their ball in their hands. Like this year, Matt, our point guard, I think his career high in assists was like 3.2 in his 3 years at his other place, and averaged almost 6 a game this year. And so and 20 points on top of that. But, every year we have a good point guard. It's been pretty good. And then like big guys, like, are you able to screen the ball, roll and catch, or I like big guys that can shoot. Like this year the goal is to probably have like 5 guys on the floor at all times that can shoot, and then, multifaceted. But the main thing is, we're looking at who can get in right away. And then it's like, all right, you can get in now. Can you play? Because there's a lot of guys that can get in that can't play. And, like, yeah, I do. I answer emails all the time. And, I look at Twitter, and, especially like this weekend, people are out on the road recruiting. So I'll be looking who NYU and some of the people are following a little bit to see who I need to be following. So,
yeah, I like that.
I was just gonna say, so you said that you want at some points in the game, you want 5 players that can shoot on the floor, and it makes me think. So how much of this was like, how much of your transition to wanting players that can shoot at all times? How much of that come with like the transition of what basketball is coming today with like the pace and space? Like, did your play style change, or in the early 2000s or early 2010s rather, to now? Like, I'm kind of interested in that.
It's probably changed a lot. Like, I think it's really changed a lot in the last couple of years.
Okay.
My buddy, like I said, my college roommate and one of my best friends is Nevada Smith and Marquette, and the way they play and space to floor, and he was in the NBA forever, and the way they do stuff. And so, like, I look to see what teams do. I kind of have like a perspective how I want our teams to play. And then it's just a matter of like figuring out, does this work or not? So like this year we had to add some stuff maybe we haven't run. And if you watch the teams I coached at Hartwick compared to now, you think it was a different coach, and we had a dominant 5-man that that needed the ball. And then we had different guys that had to play differently. We used to run a lot of Carolina break at Hartwick, and throw it in or double away, and we don't do any of that anymore. And we didn't really play out of horns there, and we play out of horns here, and we probably play more flat ball pick, and run a lot of different variations of Spain ball screen, and just trying to evolve. And if I see something on TV, or I'll go back and watch it on Synergy. I probably watch way more NBA than I do college. Like the only college team that I really watch if my buddies are coaching them, and I really watch more NBA than anything. And with the shot clock, and I really don't watch what the Cavs run right now because I don't know what they're trying to do. But that's for another day, another time. But if you watch like the kind of like the Timberwolves, they run good stuff there, and he's actually a Division III guy too. He played a Franklin Marshall, and so certain teams you're watching. The Celtics are a good example of how they have everyone out there. It seems like they can really shoot it, and where they hide the guys that don't shoot it well, or how you cut those guys, and just trying to figure that out to see, and then I don't really go and watch like videos of guys talking about basketball and stuff like that. I'm more of like popping on a game and you see something, and now you can find everything on Twitter too, so you can always go back and find that action on Twitter, and that helps.
Yeah, I mentioned before the break that you're big and you have a unique style regarding the transfer portal, and looking back at your rosters, you can see that you're bringing in a lot of transfers each year. This past year, you brought in 6 significant transfers, and these guys are real hoopers. Anthony Mazzio, who was a 1,300-point scorer at his previous school, Division II kid school, or Division II kid that you brought in, Division I kid. So I'm just curious, what your perspective on the transfer portal is, why you go so hard in the transfer portal, and how you are finding the right pieces for Case Western Reserve so that they're not messing your program up and continue to evolve it.
Yeah, usually there's some kind of connection. Usually there's a connection. Like most of our guys I've known or were recruited out of high school and it didn't work. Anthony's a great example. I didn't really know Anthony, but he worked his internship with Ernst & Young in Cleveland. And the guy he internship for played basketball at Case Western, and was like, hey, like Anthony had a bunch of Division II offers and could have gone, he probably could have gone Division I and played at certain places. And, he wanted to stay in Cleveland. That's where his job's going to be. And, I reached out to him, and it was interesting. We scrimmaged him 2 or 3 years ago, and he absolutely dominated us. He lit us up for like 40-some points. And I remember we were struggling last year, oh man, we need a point guard. We need to find one. We were struggling, finding one, struggling. And then he popped up on Twitter someday, and it was still looking for school. And I'm like, all right, follow, text message, and, and hey, let's get you over here. Came over and visited. And that was in June. So usually it's like a connection we've had with guys. We do our homework on guys, follow up with guys. And one of our guys right now is looking for doing a gap year for biochemistry. He's going to go to med school. And, I've been reaching out to schools for him. I want to come back, but, I've been reaching out and, telling people, helping him out a little bit, but most of the time it's some kind of connection we've had, know the guys, know their coach, recruited him out of high school, didn't get in, or money didn't work, stuff like that.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's been great. I say all the time, it took 50 years, a pandemic, and 3 grad transfers, and we got to the NCAA tournament. So, and I'm not shy about it. I tell incoming guys, we're going to have grad guys, we're going to have transfers. At Hartwick, we had, significant transfers. My last 2 years at Hartwick, we got a guy that hardly played at your sinus, but I knew his workout guy, and he was like, no, he's a beast, and came in his first team all Empire 8 for 2 years in a row, and sat on the bench of your sinus and never got in. And, there's a lot of those guys out there, you guys can probably think of them or know them, like, oh, that guy's a beast. He kills in practice, and maybe coach doesn't put him in, or coach, something's different. He doesn't guard, or he doesn't figure stuff out, but that guy goes somewhere else. And, the guy that Trevor Norton was his name, he was like, coach didn't play me because he didn't like my defense. And, well, he averaged 20 points a game for 2 years, so I didn't really worry about his defense because he was a walking bucket. Yeah. And so I think it's just trying to figure out the right style, the right kids, and I tell them when they come in, hey, there's going to be other guys in here, so you might go from scoring 15 a game, you might score 8, and if you're willing to do that and have the better, we want to win, and if you want to win, come here and we're going to win. And I think guys understand that, and most of the time we bring in good dudes that, but if you're going to do it, you better win. That's what I say all the time. If you're bringing in guys that are older and, that are going to maybe take some of the younger guys' opportunities, you better make sure you're going to win.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question too, actually, but I'm going to just ask one. And, we talked with Coach Raynack a few moments ago, and we were talking about the Division III model. It's supposed to, kind of allow players to have the unique 4-year experience playing a high level of basketball, but also focus on extracurricular things. So I'm curious, what would you say to someone that says going after the transfer portal so hard, bringing in grad transfers, not ruining, but kind of not giving them the same experience that another school might is heard in the Division III model?
Yeah, I think, when people say that, I think there's a lot of jealousy. You know what I mean? When people say that at times, because, Case has never been good. Now we're good. And, I think I get, Case and myself personally, I think people come after us a little bit because we were never good. And people don't realize NYU started 4 grad transfers, and everyone in our conference had them, and then the teams in the NCAA tournament trying had 3 transfers start for them. So, people, I think we're a little bit of a lightning rod because we were the first people to figure it out a little bit. But I think it's, when people say that, it's well, the guys that we've taken all lost a year because of COVID. Their lives were changed because, they lost that year because of COVID. So they, I think it's a way for them to get their life a little bit. Our guys, Anthony scored 1,300 points and he didn't play a year, and so it's it's another way for them to get a experience that they didn't have. And, because of, COVID, and so it's like, we're not breaking rules. We're not doing anything wrong, taking these guys. And, and our younger guys, we've played, that's what everyone forgets. We started, 2 or 3 guys this year that have been here, our third-ling scorers, a guy that's been here, our fourth, so like our guys have, we developed good guys and gotten better. And so maybe freshmen and sophomores are not getting their opportunity that they maybe would have. But when freshmen and sophomores are playing, especially freshmen, that guy better be a beast in UAA. You're not going to win. It's hard to win in any conference. Like you think about the conference you guys are in, like and playing like freshmen. You get a freshman on, you start laughing. You're like, well, I'm going to go at this guy, or like you want to, those. It's hard to win with freshmen, and so I think it's helped us bridge it, and and then just getting developed and getting guys better, and trying to have a great experience. And the guys here are having a great experience coming in and, winning games and going to the NCAA tournament, 2 Sweet 16. So it's been, back-to-back UAA champions and, guys that, never knew each other. Now that will be best friends the rest of their lives. One of our guys, Griffin, he's in New York and he got engaged. Actually, he's in Columbia now. I don't know where the heck he's living right now, but he got engaged, and 2 guys, he was only a 1 year guy here, 1 year here. And 3 of the guys that he played with flew in for his engagement party. So, like, I think these guys are, and it's a little different because, when you bring in grad guys, some of them are old, 22, 23, 24, 25, like, and they're, 23 years old, and they really going to want to hang out with a 17-year-old freshman. So I think you need to, and they all get along, but, I think you need a balance of a couple of them so they can all, older guys that they can be pretty good friends. And, a 23-year-old is a lot different, life than an 18-year-old freshman in college trying to figure out how to do my laundry or go to class, how many pass engineering class or whatever.
So this is actually, it brings up another interesting discussion. Although you don't have, many freshmen on the roster or freshmen or underclassmen on the roster, you do have some. And I'm wondering, as a coach, how are you, like, with bringing in, grad transfers or just transfers in general, how are you also developing the younger guys through that? Is it just through competition, or is it like a mix of competition and coaching from yourself?
Yeah, I think it's, a lot of competition. And like I tell guys, I'm like, listen, like our freshmen this year, we have a couple of freshmen I think could be good players for us. And they're in the scout team every day. And I have to remind them, I'm like, hey, like Umar Rashid, who started for us this year every game, and Sam Chunley, who was our third-leading scorer, when they were freshmen, we were in a Sweet 16. They were on a scout team. They were Oshkosh. Ian Elam, who started every game as a junior and was one of our key reserves this year, he didn't dress in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. So I think that's stuff that we like tell guys, like, hey, like these guys have been through it. Like, so when you're in scout team in practice, like we're looking out there and be like, hey, like, can this guy help us eventually? Like, is this guy going to be a, and you can usually tell, like, you're like, okay, that guy's going to be a good player for us. And, so usually it's developing through that way, having good assistants that work guys out. And, in the end, like, it's just Division III is really about attrition. Like, can you outlast your teammates? Can you, put the work in? You're going to work in the summer because, our guys, we don't have anyone here in the summer. Our guys are all over the country. But, it's really about like, okay, like I'm going to work harder than this guy or I'm not, and usually, guys like Sam Trunley, he works his butt off. So like we knew he was going to be a player. And like if you put Sam in any, Division III that wasn't the NCAA tournament, he probably averaged 25 points a game. He's he had multiple games over 20 points this year. And he sometimes doesn't even, I think in the first round of the NCAA tournament, he had 5 points and we won, and so like, I think it's just a matter of like getting guys to understand, like there's a bigger goal is to keep winning and, get back to the NCAA tournament and, try to make a run to get out of it, a little bit further than we've ever been.
Yeah, I think KJ can attest to this too. Like, especially at, sometimes Division III, I think, some freshmen and, even like sometimes I feel like myself when I was coming in, like you expect a lot for yourself, right? Coming into a program thinking that it's going to be easy, but then you realize that there's so many good players in D3. And especially when you're on winning programs like Alfred, Case Western, and Utica, like, like you might have to sacrifice that first year. You might have to just sit back and just learn. And, some kids can't do that, but I do like think that, the kids that you do have in the roster, that the fact that they're able to do that only means that they're going to set themselves up for, a great future and at Case Western and just in basketball in general.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about being here is that you're at a top academic institution. So like guys are going to work at it and stay around because let's be honest, they're here for school like all of us are, like all guys should be, and, setting themselves up to be, later in life. But yeah, it's just about like, if guys, you can kind of tell who's going to be the guys that make it and who are the guys that might, join a frat or, might start playing intramurals soon. And, like you can kind of tell, like, priorities change and, you're not playing much and you're still going to be willing to work. You're still going to be giving it all a practice and, or you're going to be like, okay, I can do this. And, or you're going to be the guy that's, oh, coach, why am I not playing? Well, we're number 3 in the country, number 2 in the country right now. We haven't lost a game in a month. Like, I'm not probably going to put you in. Like, let's hope we get up by 20 and you get your chance and go. When you get your chance, go take it.
So, just to wrap it up, I wanted to circle back to one discussion that we had earlier in the episode. And you talked about how, your first couple of years at Hartwick, or maybe even when you were coaching an assistant coach, those times weren't always pretty. Like you said, you had a couple 2 or 3 win seasons. And, we also talked with Coach Riley about this too, just about, going through tough stretches as a coach. So what would be your biggest piece of advice to coaches going through tough stretches with games or just losing seasons?
Yeah, luckily we haven't had one in a while, but it's been, those are not easy. I think it consumes you, when you're a basketball season, it consumes you. And I think just, my philosophy would be just have as much fun, have the players have as much fun as they can, make practice. I think our guys, if you ask them, they love coming to practice. We get up and down and shoot a lot and we're in and out and, just trying to, make it as enjoyable as possible. And then realize, especially as a coach, there could be a lot of other worse jobs you could have than coaching guys in basketball and, and just trying to get guys better and then trying to enjoy it, enjoy every moment of it. And because it flies by. Like I've been doing this. Crazy. I'm in my 40s now, and I've been doing this. And it seems like just yesterday I was getting a job at Hartwick, or and stuff like that. Or I just had moved to Cleveland. It feels like yesterday. Now it's been 8 years and 3 boats later, and we're still here. So, but yeah, just enjoy it. And those tough times they're not going to last. You know what I mean? Just make sure the guys have the best experience possible. And I'm sure at some point we're going to go back to some of those days where we're going to have a tough stretch coming. And even now when we lose, it's just like, guys, like, all right, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. We'll get out of this. And, I'm not going to go in there and yell and scream at you and cuss you out or, all right, let's just get back to Tuesday. Let's get back. Usually when we struggle, we lost 2 in a row on the road this year, and the next practice back, we just played the whole time. We just put 20 minutes on the clock and it was like, all right, let's get back to playing. Like, let's get back to who we are, get the ball up and down. Let's see some shots go in. And, the 2 games we lose are at Chicago and WashU. Those are not easy back-to-back games. But, it's like, let's get back to who we are. Let's get back to seeing the ball go in. Let's get back to moving around. Let's get, have some fun in here today. And, where you could be going in there and some guys be like, oh, God, coach is going to kill us today. And, we're going to be running. And, I've really got away from that just because I want them to enjoy it. And, of course we're upset we lost, but, there's other ways to, get better and, keep it rolling when when you think the world's going to end.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And something that I really commend you on throughout this whole interview, just learning about you, is your philosophies and strategies. They're very unique. And a lot of people wouldn't adopt the same philosophies, but you're staying true to that. And I respect that. And I definitely can see why Case Western is a successful program.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. But we're going to end this episode with a little rapid fire and starting 5 edition. So let us know when you're ready for rapid fire.
Ready to roll.
Okay, first rapid fire question. Favorite away trip in the UAA?
I would say Pittsburgh because that's where my family is, but we struggled there winning lately. So no, I think all of them, except Rochester, New York. That's probably not my favorite trip. Going up there. It seems like
what's the problem with New York?
Yeah, I don't want New York City, but you go to Rochester, there's like a foot of snow on the ground, and who wants to live there? Like, saying that, but yeah, I think all of them. I like Chicago because I eat a lot of pizza, so it usually depends on who has the best pizza. So I love when we go to Chicago, deep dish. I love when I go to New York City, so I can get some. John on Bleeckers, and so yes, usually I base my trips on the where the pizza is. So New York and Chicago are probably my favorite.
Next time, I got a recommendation for you. Next time you're in New York City,
that?
try Gruppo's. It's like thin crust pizza. It's on the Lower East Side, so it's not too far from NYU.
Text it to me after. I'll probably go there.
I got you. Favorite so you've been coaching for a while. So favorite basketball coaching memory.
Gosh, there's a few. I would say maybe my favorite was, I have one as a player. As a player, I hit a 3/4 court shot at the end of halftime. I was 1 for 1 for 3 that game, and I didn't shoot another one. I just caught it in their first half and chucked it and swished it from deep. And then the next day of practice, and we're doing like dry offense. One of my buddies is like, "Oh, that's from McGuinness," and I just took it and chucked it. Like the first in practice. So needless to say, I was running real quick in that next practice. But one of my favorite ones there. And then I'd say, probably just like, the enjoyment of a lot of our wins. Like maybe the first we haven't won at Emory in 15 years, and we have a bunch of alumni down there. So that was a fun one. We beat them there this year. So that's one that sticks in the mind. And, just the first UAA championship, of course, winning at Oshkosh in front of like 6,000 people. I've had a lot, luckily I've been blessed to have a lot in the last couple of years, and or probably the first one at Hartwick when the gym was packed. So like just thinking back to there's a lot of them, but I think I remember some of the losses more than I do the wins.
And then last rapid fire question. So name a player who you saw the most development from in your career. So like from freshman to sophomore year, or even, maybe a transfer that came in that had 2 years. Who was a player that you saw that from?
I would say probably Trevor Norton, the guy that was a transfer from your sinus. He really developed himself. He came in from not playing. He worked his tail off. I've had a lot of guys that have worked their butts off to get better. A guy when I first got here, TJ Duckett, he was like a first-team All-UA guy, and he's a lawyer here in Cleveland, a friend of mine, and, stay in touch. And he really changed his body. He got, he lost all this weight, got in great shape, and was just an absolute dominant force. And he absolutely dominates men's leagues in Cleveland now. So I think TJ was a guy, and there's a few of them, but like those two stick out in my mind just because I would look down in the gym, and then like Sam Trunley, who's one of our best players now, he's in there. Like when I was in my office to start this, he's down in the gym right now. So like there's guys like that you just think about, and that how much work they put in. And Mitch Pendergrass, who's the guy who came in and was UA Player of the Year, like he'd be in the gym every day at 6 a.m. Like he was in there 3 hours a day, every day, So like guys like that really, help set the bar for the younger guys to see, oh, this guy's averaging 20 a game and he's in there at 6 a.m. every day. Like, so I think a lot of there's a few of them, but like some of those guys stand out just, because the amount of time I would see him in the gym is why it stands out.
Yeah, I like that. All right, we're going to finish with some starting 5 edition. And so if you're a coach assembling a lineup, point guard through center, who's your lineup going to be? And this edition is going to be the best UAA and Empire 8 players you've seen throughout your career.
All right. Who would that be? I have to go with my man Suds as the 5 man. I'd probably go what the heck is his name? Rossi. He's the assistant at Montclair State from Ithaca. He was like the all-time leader. He was an awesome point guard. So I'd say him, Sean Rossi, be my point guard. I always think about there's a guy when I was I can't remember his name. There's a guy at Carnegie Mellon when I was the assistant that was a beast. I can't remember. Jack Serban. He was a monster. Roll out my guy Mitch. Probably staying a lot of my own players here. And then, there was the guy Matt Sneer. Matt was an awesome player at Emory a couple of years ago. So point guard would be Rossi, 2 guard would be Mitch, 3 man would be Matt from Emory that went on to play Division I. He was an absolute monster. Then the guy from Mellon, I can't remember his name. He was like 6
Jack Serban.
Awesome. Yeah, Jack Serban. Yeah. He was awesome. And then my man Sutz. So there's a lot. You could probably if you put a UA All-Star team together right now, it'd be insane. And I would have a hard time not saying Danny Frondheim too, who was our point guard 2 years ago. He was awesome. I have a hard time not saying him, but I can. That's a good one. I would have to do some serious thought. I would have to go start looking through, but like I really don't say many guys from other teams, but I would put a dude from Emory on there in a heartbeat. We couldn't guard him. I think about the guys we can't guard. There's a few of them. Then you're like, like Rossi, we couldn't guard Rossi. We just couldn't guard him.
One thing that I always like doing, like thinking about the starting 5 is There should low-key be a end of the year, like SUNY versus Empire 8 starting 5, like the best players throughout that year. I feel like that would be dope and just like build that connectivity. But
SUNY, Liberty League, and Empire 8 play an all-star game with the best players. That'd be fun.
Exactly. I think that would be dope. But that's going to do it for another episode of Not Even D2. We appreciate your time, Coach McGuinness. It's been a wonderful episode. Really like talking to you and look forward to seeing how Case Western Reserve battles next year.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you reaching out. And I follow you guys on Twitter, and it's awesome what you guys are doing.
Appreciate that, Coach.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Not Even D2. If you haven't already, make sure to go follow all the socials at Not Even D2. You can catch every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, KJ Allison, and I'll see you next episode.